I'd like to call to order the January 3rd, 2023 organizational meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take roll call. Lee Shirtliff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Shauna Black. Here. Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Present.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Veronica Pillar.
Here.
The first order of business this evening is to elect a temporary chair. I'd like to open the floor for nominations. Deborah Dawson.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Mike Lane.
Do I have a second? Dan Klein. Are there any other nominations? May I have a motion to close the nominations? Greg Mezzi, seconder. Deborah Dawson. All those in favor of Mike Lane as temporary chair, please show your hands. Those opposed? It's 13 ayes, 0 noes. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Katrina, for starting our meeting. Done a lot of different things over the years on the legislature. I haven't done this before, so it's going to be, I won't go on too long, but I do want to mention that it was 53 years ago that some forward-thinking people in Tompkins County decided to ask the voters to approve a charter. And the charter is our constitution at our local level that we use to guide us in our day-to-day activities here at the legislature and throughout Tompkins County. One of the best things, in my opinion, that they did was to decide that leadership would be voted on every year and not just at the beginning of the four-year term. And that, I think, has proven to be a good thing for our county. It allows different people to serve in different roles more often, and it gives some fresh perspective to issues that come before us. So I just wanted to celebrate that we do have a charter. Unlike some other counties that are still boards of supervisors or county executive counties, ours is, I think, the right kind of government for our county. Having said that, I will proceed to the order of business. The first order of business today will be the election of a chair of the legislature for the year 2023. And at this point, I will open it up for nominations. I'm going to recognize Greg Mezzi.
I'd like to nominate Shauna Black for another term as chair of the legislature. I think Shauna's done a great job. She's been an incredible leader this year, and I fully stand behind her and look forward to another year with her in the leadership position.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Amanda Champion.
Yeah, I would agree. I've worked with Shauna for 5 years now, and she's been a smart, compassionate leader for all of these years, and I think we would benefit from having her lead us again.
Are there other nominations? Not seeing any. We'll proceed to a vote, and I'm going to ask for a roll call. Sorry? Do we? Our clerk says we need to close nominations. Someone want to move to close? Ann Corman, seconded by Rich. Any discussion? All in favor of closing nominations? That's unanimous. So we will proceed to a vote, and we will call the roll, and you can name the person you're voting for.
Lee Shirtliff,
Shauna Black.
Mike Sigler,
Shauna Black.
Shauna Black,
Shauna Black.
that was weird. Travis Brooks, Travis Brooks,
Shauna Black.
Randy Brown,
Shauna Black.
Amanda Champion,
Shauna Black.
Deborah Dawson,
Shauna Black.
Rich John,
Shauna Black.
Dan Klein,
Shauna Black.
Ann Corman,
Shauna Black.
Mike Lane,
Shauna Black.
Greg Mezzi,
Shauna Black.
Veronica Pillar.
Shauna Black.
13 ayes for Shauna Black.
My short-lived term here comes to an end, and I'll turn the gavel over to our new chair.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for coming tonight. I would like to move on to the election of our vice chair. I would like to now open the floor for nominations for vice chair. Deborah Dawson.
Thank you. Madam Chair and colleagues, it's my pleasure and privilege to nominate Dan Klein for the position of Vice Chair of our legislature. Over the past few years, I've worked closely with Dan on a number of issues, most notably TCAT funding and the Community Recovery Fund Committee. In my experience, he has been both a fierce advocate for the county's best interests and a thoughtful and honest broker in the marketplace of conflicting ideas. Dan has long been willing to assume whatever responsibilities legislative leadership needs him to undertake, chairing a diversity of committees, including GO, HHS, and the Community Recovery Fund. In 2022, I was particularly impressed with Dan's management of the Community Recovery Fund process, which was an arduous and thankless task that he handled with patience, fairness, and transparency. I believe Dan has demonstrated character and qualifications to be an excellent vice chair, and I look forward to handing that over to him.
Thank you, Deborah. And a seconder, please. Seconded by Lee Shirtliff.
Madam Chair, thank you. And first of all, congratulations on your reelection. When I served as Director of Emergency Response, I had the privilege of working with Legislator Klein on various issues of concern to the rural areas: emergency medical services, hazard mitigation, cell phone coverage, and less successfully broadband coverage. But nonetheless, since I have been a member of this body, I've got to see Dan a little more in action, and I observed him to be a thoughtful, thorough, thinking legislator, one who is comprehensive in their view, collaborative, and above all, considerate. And these are all qualities that I think that we seek in leadership for our body. And I support this nomination, knowing that Dan will emulate and exemplify these qualities. And as a rural legislator, know that Dan will continue to advance a broad array of issues. And so it's my pleasure to second this nomination.
Thank you, Lee. Are there any other nominations tonight for vice chair? I see none. May I have a motion to close the nominations? Moved by Greg, seconded by Veronica Pillar. All those in favor of closing nominations, please signify by a show of hands. That is unanimous. Thank you. Are there any opposed? No. Nominations for vice chair is now closed. All those in favor of electing Dan Klein as vice chair, please signify by a show of your hands. Okay. And any opposed? Okay. Congratulations, Dan Klein. You are our next vice chair.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is, as we move down our agenda, we do not have any presentations of proclamations, petitions, communications, or notices. We also will not have an executive session this evening. And we're going to open it up for privilege of the floor for our public. And we do have some blue cards this evening. Just want to start off by going over the rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. First one, I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. Number 4, I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. Number 5, after 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. Number 6, I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. First up is David Shapiro.
Thank you. I'm here once more to try to speak about Second Wind's application for recovery funds that would enable us to build 25 heated and insulated cabins for currently homeless individuals in Tompkins County on property Second Wind owns and behind our current cottage community. I know my time is brief. I could spend some time discussing why cabins and not cottages. Briefly, there are land use restrictions that prevent us from adding more supportive housing on our land, which forced us to think more creatively when considering how to expand our capacity to house people. I can spend time discussing the differences between our proposal and the proposal advocated through the Tides Work Group. But it is true that Second Wind's proposal to build cabins in a campsite community was born out of the creative thinking that came out of that group. However, while our idea might have been inspired by them, we needed to create a proposal that also considered our current community and allows our proposal allows us to both expand and offer more housing to the homeless while also ensuring the safety and the stability of our current cottage community. I can also spend some time refuting many of the claims made by Legislator Brown during the last legislative meeting, including his accusation that we're not being truthful. But what I will tell you is that we strive for a drug and alcohol-free environment, and we accept people that make mistakes. I recognize some residents may not want to see more Second Wind in their backyards, or maybe they have other agendas they're pursuing. But I hope we are bound to speak truthfully about our community members. And I'm thankful to Legislator Pilar for reading aloud the only Newfield resident who submitted comments last meeting, comments that supported our expansion. Lastly, I could try to explain to Mr. Sigler, Legislator Sigler, excuse me, that there are lots of good locations to build homes and shelters for homeless people. And despite Econo Lodge making sense to you, I hope that given the chance to listen and learn, it might make sense for you that people seeking peace and recovery prefer taking shelter in a bucolic environment, such as the property we own in Newfield. Or that by having a program that focuses on building trust and community, rather than solely focused on our proximity to services, we're actually providing the exact response many of our guys need to begin trusting these services. Rather than spending a lot of time on any one of these points, I just want to spend the remaining time I have imploring you, when you have the chance, approve the funding for Second Wind cottages to expand to our Second Wind campsites. It's a proposal that will offer 25 people who are currently living unhoused, who are currently unsafe in our community. It's going to offer them a cabin, a private cabin, in a community that loves and supports them. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next is Rupert Robbins.
I would just like to speak to the opportunity that's been afforded to me. I'm a resident of Second Wind Cottages. I think that the smart thing for me to do is to present an anecdotal kind of encapsulation of the opportunity that's been presented to me. I am a product of the New York State Drug Rehabilitation Program. I don't think any of you can remember back in the day, I was one of the very top chefs in this town. I ran into some personal issues, some mental health issues, ended up jobless. I went from earning, basically 6 figures a year down to being homeless. I was about 2 days from being at the shelter down there in downtown Ithaca. Carmen picked me up from the residency program in Trumansburg, brought me to Second Wind. I'm a rather determined fellow. I enrolled in TC3. I have a grade point average of 3.94. I'm the top student in my class. I graduate this next semester, and I have accrued enough credits, I'll probably get my bachelor's degree in 5 semesters. That's a lot of hard work. I received the President's Award last year, the Hussein Bahar Award. New York State, OASIS, the head drug and alcohol rehabilitation office in New York State, they awarded 16 internships across the entire state of New York, and I got one. I work for the Alcohol and Drug Council right now. So what I'm talking about is a social return on investment. This language I hope you guys can understand. So the money that you put into Second Wind, people like me create a ripple effect. The thesis that I'm working for, and I'm going to stay in school until I get my PhD, these anecdotal stories are going to turn into a project that I'm going to affect a lot of people's lives. I already have. I spend my spare time down in the commons. I talk to people with problems similar to my own. I'm going to continue on into mental health. My major right now is substance abuse counseling. Like I said, I'm the top student. At 62 years old, I haven't been in school for 40 years. But that ripple effect that I'm trying to create is part of the social return on investment. And just thank all of you guys for taking the time to listen to me.
Mr. Robbins, thank you for coming in tonight and sharing your story. I think it really touched a lot of us this evening, and you should be really proud of your achievements. Dino?
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you. My name is Dino. I'm a resident at Second Wind. I'm going to try to condense a long story in 3 minutes, but just to simply put, to say, I was at the beginning of Second Wind some 13 years ago, part of the original board member, staff person, and watched it grow and watched things happen there. And one of the things I realized later was that I had a stereotypical view of homelessness. There's many stories out there, but I viewed, well, you got yourself in this mess. We're here to help you get out of this mess. I realized later how arrogant and prideful view that was. And that there's a lot of stories of why people become homeless. And it wasn't until I lost my wife 5 years ago to cancer where life changed for me. And all of a sudden, I didn't care too much anymore. I wasn't paying bills. Mortgage didn't mean anything to me. I was floundering and I didn't know it. And it happened soon after she passed. And to be honest with you, I never thought I would deal with her death and passing in the way I did. I'm a local pastor. I was a local pastor of a local area church. And I would pastor people, you got to trust God and get on with it. And well, you know what? I realized that you never know how you're going to react in a situation till you're actually in it. till you actually begin to go through it. And I started to go through some things that I realized about myself, and I just started to flounder. I didn't want to become homeless, but I was one step into homelessness. I was getting ready or trying to figure out where I was going to park my car and live. But then second wind happened, and being part of it, my friends there said to me, you know, we have a cottage available. Would you like to live there? And to be honest with you, it's the last thing I wanted to do. I did not want to go. I was ashamed and embarrassed I had been there at the part, and now look at what my life has become. But I realize now, being afforded that opportunity, second wind has given me an opportunity to begin to heal in a way that I wouldn't have had I entered some standard procedures and gone to certain places. I really had the opportunity to really look into myself to see I was afforded that opportunity to actually heal in a way that I didn't think I could or would. And it is happening, and I'm thankful. And whatever money is offered and given to Second Wind, I'm just going to say from my own personal experience, it's well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Curtis Simmons.
Good evening, everybody. I'm also a resident at Second Wind Cottages. I can't say enough about how grateful and appreciative I am for, Carmen, Dave, Mike Foster for getting me in there. The support I've been given. I'm clean, I'm sober, and I've made wonderful friends there, not drinking buddies, but friends, people I can count on. And our community there, that's what it's all based on, helping each other out. We've all got issues we've had to deal with, and we all help each other out. The place down below, I was apprehensive about because I didn't want a bunch of strangers coming through our place because it's our place, Access wasn't a big issue for me. How are they going to get through? I don't want to have to lock my door every time I leave my house. Mike and Dave they're going to do the screening process. I trust them implicitly. It gives me a lot of relief, And these people, boy, I needed help. They need help. Help should be given to these people. And I hope that we can get clean, sober people in there that are working on their lives. And, working to get back on their feet. They need a hand. They need your help. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Carmen.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Thanks for having us. I'm probably not even going to need the 3 minutes. I don't know if you can reset that or not, but I'm here for one reason only. My friends that are living outside in tents right now. You walked in here tonight, right, with umbrella. Pretty nasty outside. Temperature's not bad, but it'll get cold again. I got a 78-year-old friend that's, pretty handicapped. That's living out there in a tent. That's all I think about. That's why I'm here, because I've got friends, people I know, people I have relationships with, living outdoors. Remember the last cold spell we had? Pretty cold, wasn't it? Living outdoors. I know this is a big political thing. I get it. I don't get it really. I mean, but I that's not any. I don't even think about it. I think about because what happens is with all of this, they get forgotten about. They do. They just get forgotten. I've sat on committee after committee after committee and task force and after task force after task force to try to come up with something to help the people that are living in tents. When the snow comes down, the wet snow, you know what happens? The tents collapse. In the middle of the night, they collapse. And they're out there in the snow, in the rain, everything is wet. You can't envision it until you go down there and be with them and see what happens. And for heaven's sakes, we just want to help them. We just want to help them. We want to give them a nice place to be. There's not even going to be running water or sewer, but there will be in the common room. Just a safer place to be around people who care about them. That's what we are. I'm the guy. I didn't say who I was. I'm Carmen. I'm the guy who started Second Wind. Some people say I'm the idiot that started Second Wind. Some of the older residents say that's the idiot that started Second Wind. So be it. When I started, I had 9 people that were directly from the jungle. 9 people were in campers. I had 3 of them at my residence, and I had the rest of them behind my shop. I literally moved homeless people right into my backyard, literally. 8 of them, I think it became 9. I never had a single issue, nothing. And the Second Wind wasn't even Second Wind. It was just me. Come, live in a camper. You've got hot water. You can take a shower. You can cook for yourself. Before Second Wind started, that's how it started. And then we started to build the cottages. Only reason I'm here is we have to keep. Thank you.
You can finish up, Mr. Guidi. You're welcome to finish up if you'd like. Okay.
He would have kept going.
Okay. Well, thank you for all that you do. It is appreciated. Anyone else here for public comment? Please fill out a blue form. Do we have anyone via Zoom, Dominic? Okay. We are going to move on to municipal officials, and I see that George McGonigal is here from the City of Ithaca.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, George.
Happy New Year. We're lucky to have Carmen, I'll say that. So here's the city update. Tomorrow is our first Common Council meeting of the year, and Laura Lewis is now our mayor. She's no longer our acting mayor. We're going to swear in a new member tomorrow night. Tiffany Kumar will be sworn in and will represent the 4th Ward. She's replacing Patrick Mailer, who you all know and we all think the world of, and he did a great job, and I want to thank him. We will have one open seat on Common Council because Laura's seat will now be open, and that will be filled by an appointment. It's not going to be a special election, although we are working on changing that procedure, and I think we'll probably end up with a system that's not unlike yours, where there's a special election after a short period of time, but not this time. The mayor will choose an acting mayor and an alternative acting mayor tomorrow. Not sure who those people will be yet. Other news in development, what was formerly called Chain Works, which is the old Morse Chain factory property, has been transferred to a new group, and it's now called Southworks, and they're going to apply for a Restore New York funding grant to help clean up the site, and it looks like work is going to start on that soon, and that'll probably be the biggest redevelopment project in the city's history. It's really a big former factory. The new group is called Shift Capital. They're based in Philadelphia, and they've already hired a company that's headed by women, and another one that's minority black-owned. And so we're looking forward to working with them. Another thing we're going to do tomorrow night is we're going to vote to appoint a member of Common Council to act as a labor liaison for our labor negotiations with city unions. That vote will pass. We're going to vote to approve the establishment of the CJC Advisory Board, the Community Justice Center Advisory Board. I watched a meeting I was in over the weekend, and I have to say, I say just about more than anybody else. I'm going to try to stop doing that. Other things, ongoing issues. The Public Safety Reimagining Subcommittee is approaching the recommendation phase of its undertaking, so we're hopefully going to wrap that up soon. A subcommittee studying homelessness and a possible sanctioned encampment in the jungle, in the bucolic jungle, continues its work, and some of us hope to have a sanctioned encampment in the city by spring on city property. The process of building a new East Hill firehouse is underway. And I'll close by saying that in my ward, in the first ward, we are having a lot of problems with crime and violence, and it's no joke. If you read the paper or read the Ithaca Voice, you know that you know what's going on. So that's all I got to say.
Thank
Questions?
you, George. Any questions?
Randy. Of course there is. Yes, there is. The issue, and I think a lot of it's going to be cleaned up this winter, the issue is if it just gets repopulated and destroyed again, then it makes no sense to clean it up in the first place. It's dangerous to clean up these places, in case you didn't know. But yes.
Rich Strawn, and then Mike Sigler.
George, first I just want to say thank you so much in 2022 for coming and visiting with us. The information you give us is really helpful, and I want to commend the city for the work you're doing on public safety and on the encampments. I think those are both really important, and I know you've spent a lot of time on both of those issues, and I think are making a real difference. So I wish us all a good 2023. So thanks, George.
Thanks, Rich. I hope we have a good 2023 as well.
Next is Mike Sigler.
Just a couple of questions, George. I mean, the one on the cleanup, I just found that to be an interesting take. I mean, if there was graffiti on a wall, would we not take the graffiti down because people would just do graffiti again? I mean, we don't really.
Are you kidding me?
Any other problem.
Are you kidding me?
Not really. I would.
This is different than graffiti.
This is a lot of garbage, George, along the waterfront that's washing into the lake every day.
I know that.
I know you know that. I think it's a public health hazard, George.
So, do you want to help with that?
I've asked, yes. I've asked us to help with that.
I think
frankly, it's your land.
I think that is a conversation that we are going to have in the upcoming year in Health and Human Services. I mean, we are a partner with the city, and so whatever we do, the city's going to have to partner with us.
I appreciate that, and I agree with that.
And, you know, obviously, our concerns are the cleanliness, the waterways, the sanitation. Those are all county issues that I think we can provide some feedback as well as some enforcement if needed. So, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
You also mentioned crime, at least in your district, was increasing. I didn't know if the mayor, she's going to give a state of the city. I would imagine that will be included. Is there some type of plan to address that?
I don't know what the mayor's going to say tomorrow night, but the most obvious thing is that IPD is about 15 officers understaffed right now. So one of the most obvious things that we're going to try to do is get IPD back up to full force. That's going to take time. It takes almost a year to train a police officer and get them on the street. We have just sent 3 new officers to the police academy, which is a start. It's a small start, but that's what we're doing.
That's great news about the 3. Okay, thank you, George.
And we're so short-staffed that I think the Sheriff's Department is cooperating with IPD and pitching in, which we appreciate.
All right. Thank you.
Next is Veronica Pillar.
Hi, George. I've got a later one. On the vacancy appointment for the Common Councilor, do you have any sense of the timeline on when that'll happen?
It's a good question. I think I'm going to say soon, but I don't know specifically. I think tomorrow night we'll learn more.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Greg Mezzi.
Yeah. Hi, George. Thanks for coming. Happy New Year. We've had a lot of conversation lately about our ARPA funds and, with our community recovery program. And I haven't had a chance to look this up, and I figured because you were here, I would just ask, how did the city spend most of their ARPA funds, or do you know how that was broken down, and did any of those funds make it out into the community in a direct way through any grants or support for community organizations?
I can answer part of that. We used a significant amount of our ARPA funds for infrastructure so that we wouldn't have to borrow money for those projects. We thought that was a good use of this money. Some of it has been used for community projects. I think we used some of the money for improvements at Southside Community Center. That's the only one I'm thinking of off the top of my head, but we did spread it out a little bit, and we still got a little bit left, but most of it was for infrastructure.
Any other questions or comments for George? Okay, I see none. Thank you, George, for joining us this evening. We always appreciate seeing you.
Thanks a lot. Likewise.
Okay, next it is privilege of the floor for legislators. Greg Muzzy.
Yeah, just before the gentleman from Second Wind leave, I just, again, want to thank them for coming out and sharing your stories. It definitely means a lot. And I appreciate you taking the time because it's good work, and people need to hear firsthand what's going on. So thank you for coming. I know it's not always the most exciting thing to do, to stand up and speak in front of a group like this, but I really do appreciate you all coming out and sharing your stories with us tonight. So thank you again.
Thank you, Greg. Ann Corman, Mike Sigler.
Thanks. I just also wanted to say real quick to the folks that came from Second Wind, thank you for sharing your stories. I know that takes a lot to be vulnerable and share what's going on, and real stories are good for us to hear. So anyway, I know you're on your way out, but thank you very much, and thank you for all this, support that you give these folks. And I know you help each other. Thank you.
Stop by and see us, visit with everybody.
I will.
Love to have you. Thank you.
Mike Sigler.
I just actually want to thank George McGonigal for coming and giving us a report. I don't mean to sound overly harsh to him. It's a city issue, but he's the one that's here to take the questions. So I would do this with anybody, George, but thank you for coming and doing that. I appreciate it.
Lee Shurtleff, and then Randy Brown.
I want to just make a little comment myself regarding this. I sat on the Community Recovery Fund group and helped to review those 212 applications. And one of them that caught my attention and supported at that point in the ratings was the Second Wind's proposal. And I am aware of the work that you've done out there, Carmen and company, and it's commendable. But I do want to tell you that when it came to the legislature floor, and we began to hear from the town of Newfield specifically how strongly they were concerned about it, it gave me pause, and I think it gave several of our colleagues pause. And they're very strong concerns. And if I were sitting in this seat over here and one of my municipal bodies expressed concerns as strongly as they were expressed, I would be doing what Randy's doing. And I hope that the merits of this program, I think, will move it forward. And I would hope that through the process of review that has been indicated will happen, that maybe there will be some alignment of things as we move forward, and that the concerns that a municipal body has raised before us will be addressed and allow for a good project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Randy Brown is next.
Yes, thank you. I've really been struggling. I mentioned this to Shauna, the outcome of the ARPA funds. And I mentioned early on that I thought that the committee had way too much power, and they did, because everyone that came through nothing got changed. The 6 votes that push it through, that's what came through, not one change from that. So the 30-plus hours I spent on it and reading all the 120-plus that I read of those things was a waste of time for me. I had no input in it whatsoever. So, and it is what it is, it's over. But I think mistakes were made. And I think it's always a good idea to reflect and look at what changes may have done. I think that looking at entities that could be funded through the current county budget is one thing. There are many that cannot be funded, it's my understanding, through the county budget. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But so I felt that the ones that couldn't were important to look at, because they don't have the chance. Again, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for this kind of money to come through. It's never going to happen again. I mean, is it? I mean, I doubt it. So and as far as Second Wind cottages, I respect, Carmen, what you've done. I think the large majority of people in Newfield do as well. And those people that say those types of things, I disagree with them. But ultimately, I represent the people in my district, in Newfield and Enfield, and I really struggled with this. Is why am I here? I mean, and it was a complete failure on my part that they got nothing. The Enfield got nothing. It's my failure. It's our failure. And Newfield, in their minds, got kicked in the teeth through the process. And I did speak to the people from the History Center, and they're very thankful. So I wanted to share that with you. I just feel that and it really comes down to something that Dan said quite a few times. If you're going to bring something forward, you better figure out how to pay for it. I think that's exactly what you said. And I was disillusioned. I'm naive. I didn't think that there was no money there, but there wasn't any money there. And it came down to our fund balances, because that wasn't a discussion we were going to have. So we should have had the discussion early on. the fund balance. I'm going to push really hard for looking at the fund balance. If I've done my math correctly, whatever fund balance we spent for the upcoming budget's it's back in our pockets. It's going to be right back where it was. And I just really disagree with us sitting on all that money when we obviously know from all of the grant applications we received, there are a lot of very worthy applicants that didn't get money. And I agree with 75% of the funds that you guys approved through committee, 100%. I mean, I went through it again. I don't know why I did, but I did. And so I agree with that. And some of them I would have funded more. I thought that they could have gotten more money because it's a worthwhile thing. The St. John's homeless house project, I thought, could have gotten all the money they needed. But I looked at all sorts of things. I did a lot of research, and I looked at financials and all that stuff, and it's just because I thought that's what you're supposed to do, but my input just didn't matter ultimately. But coming back to, again, I represent Newfield and Enfield, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to look at some legislatures differently that voted against Newfield. I am, just and against Enfield, got nothing. I'm going to respect people, and I'm going to be as polite as I can be, and I apologize for anything I say that makes everybody mad. I don't mean to do that in any means. But I represent the people. I received over 25 emails and phone calls since the vote on the 20th, and none of them were good. The people are so disappointed, and some of them feel that they were just disregarded completely. And that really goes to the history of how Enfield-Newfield feels. So this isn't something, okay, well, just this ARPA thing. No, they feel, and I feel, that the county is not really considered Newfield and Enfield, and maybe other people feel that way as well. And boy, now I mentioned earlier on that I thought our communication or our messaging needed help, because the county does so many great things, they really do, but they don't reach the people for whatever reason. And a good example would be the SNAP program. That it's not reaching maybe a third of the people that actually are authorized to get it. What are we doing to make sure that other people do get it? What are we doing? And so I'm going to focus on my district for that. And I thank you for listening to me, and that's it. So.
Thank you. Rich John.
Randy, I hear you. And I understand you're reflecting the views of people in your community, and you're supposed to do that. At the same time, I guess I look at it a little differently in that I represent a city district, but I'm here because we are one county. And it's always important to look at your district, but you also have to look at the whole county. And that, I think, a good example of that came up recently in decisions made at the Public Safety Committee and by this legislature in our budget to really step off into a brand new area, which is our ambulance service, emergency services. Historically, the county has not had a role really to play other than in dispatch, but we have examined what's happened across upstate New York, and I'm really excited about what we undertook to do as a county to try to make sure that we have a unified robust emergency medical service across all the communities. And I say that as a city legislator where we have reasonably good response times, but I believe we need to have them everywhere. And for people who don't live in the city, I want that message to get out, that this decision was made in our budget by all of us, that we are one county and we do need to reach out to the rural areas and make sure those response times are better and better. So it hurts me a bit to hear the message that people think that the rural areas are totally ignored. I raise that as one example, but it's not the only one. I could go on longer, but I really think that we need to look at things as a whole community, a whole county. And I hope we can demonstrate that in 2023 to the people in Enfield and Newfield that you represent, as well as everybody else. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. Mike Lane.
Yeah, I want to talk some political things tonight because it's the beginning of the year and we did our reorganizational meeting. Could couldn't help watching when I went home for lunch today, the Congress of the United States, and they were voting for a speaker. And it was interesting to me, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons I called for a roll call vote tonight in our choice of a chair, was because they were going, the whole 434 names were called. And I know they were up to at least 3 votes by the time I got done with my lunch. I thought that was pretty interesting. That was democracy at work. January 6th didn't spoil that. We continued. And they could, however they end up, the process is there. The process is to be applauded. And I think 2 years out of the way, I think we need to think a little bit about what our president's been doing. A lot of people think he's too old to be president, too old to run again. They thought he was too old before he ran last time. I can remember when we all thought, well, I take that back. I can remember when a lot of us thought that Ronald Reagan was much too old to run for president. But he got elected. He ran for 2 terms. And I think that that's all right, unless you're really an ageist. I was taught the word ageist by Greg. And don't, if you really are an ageist, you don't want older people who often have wisdom. I'll just leave it with this. I read the Cortland Standard. There's a conservative columnist, his name is Mark, it's either Thiessen or Tyson, I don't know how he pronounces it, but he's got a top 10 list here of the good things that President Biden has done. He does promise a top 10 list of the bad things he's done later on, but I thought it would be interesting just to read the bold print. Number 10, President Biden acted to prevent a crippling national rail strike. 9, he is sending B-52s to Australia to counter China. 8, he launched a full court press against China's domestic semiconductor industry. 7, he signed the first bipartisan gun legislation in decades. 6, he secured extradition of the terrorists charged with bombing Pan Am Flight 103, which killed 190 Americans. 5, he kept Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on the U.S. list of foreign terrorist organizations. 4, he won support for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. 3, he killed al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. 2, he declared the United States will defend Taiwan. And number 1, he saved Ukraine. And I just thought that was kind of interesting to think about those things. I don't think there's been a president since Lyndon Johnson who's been able to accomplish as much in legislation as Joe Biden has. So thank you for the time. I wanted to mention those things.
Thank you, Mike. Next is Ann Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to first off say congratulations to you and to Dan Klein, and I look forward to working with you and my colleagues in the coming year. I wanted to also thank several people and departments that helped me be able to participate in legislature meetings this past month. And so from our county attorney to our clerks to our legislative leadership and my colleagues, I wanted to thank you for that. And I hope that's something that we can do if other people are traveling. I wanted to say briefly, I mean, I could talk, I have a lot of thoughts about the recovery grants, but just trying to keep it brief. It was a challenging committee that I participated in, and it was challenging for all of us. It was really challenging for the chair, Dan Klein, and we did the best we could. And we could go back and second guess a lot of different things. And could we do more in the community? Sure. There's always more to do, but I think at this point we need to figure out are there some gaps? Sure, in the community. And I would like to say that through whether I'm on the Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee this coming year or not, but I think that's a good place for us to look at to help the community access grants that are out there, because a lot of these smaller organizations, as we keep saying, have a difficult time accessing. And a lot of organizations, for instance, in Newfield, it was the first time that they were applying for grants for some of them, and we need to figure out whether it's through the county or other ways to help them. So I'm committed to figuring out how we can do that. And lastly, I just wanted to say, as many folks here might know, some of you might not, in Trumansburg a few years back, there was an affordable housing project that came up for discussion in the community, and there were a lot of people in the community that were against it for many different reasons that they said, and they were very vocal, and I was for the development, thinking about the whole county as a whole, even though some people might, I thought it was the right thing, and I still think it's the right thing. People need to live somewhere, and we need to look at different parts of the community and figure out, it can't be just in downtown Ithaca. So I think we need to open up rural areas to help people, and so I think we need to say yes and yes and yes to any program or any organization. I wouldn't say a blanket yes, but I would say probably a yes, and how can we help you? We need more homes for people who are homeless. We need more affordable housing. And if organizations are willing to do this, I will most likely be saying, how can we help you do that? So I'd like us to, and I'd be open for conversations with Randy and other people, because it was hard, to have people in my community think differently than I did. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Anyone else for privilege of the floor? Okay, I have Dan Klein and Rich Strun.
I listened to those remarks, and I wasn't going to say anything because I actually agree with some of them. There was things about the process that I wish we had done differently. And you were absolutely right that in the end, it turned out people that were not on the committee did not have influence on how the money was going to be spread around, and some other things you said. None of it, none of it was that upsetting to me. And at the end, you said that the people in Newfield and Enfield feel ignored or abandoned. I'm not sure what word you used. Disregarded. And so I felt like that's what I feel like I need to say something to. So I'm speaking to the people in Newfield and Enfield and everybody else in the county. So a couple things you need to know. Besides that, there were no projects that have a geographic base in Enfield. The same is also true of Groton, and the same is also true of the town of Danby. So it wasn't just one town that was singled out. We did not take geography into account. So that's how it shook out. We do not ignore those towns. We do not ignore any towns. We represent the entire county, and we serve the entire county, and we look for opportunities to do things in any community that needs assistance, needs some services, then that falls within the parameters of what we can do. So as an example, last year, we gave a chunk of money for broadband in the town of Newfield. There are 175 households in the town of Newfield that now have broadband that did not before. So if you're going to say the town of Newfield feels disregarded, can you at least subtract 175 households, please? And then the last thing I would say is that when you look at the grants that were given, some did have geographic bases in some of the rural towns, and some are easily described as county-wide services. So I made a quick list. It's roughly 40% of the grants are going what I would call county-wide services. So here's just a couple of them. Suicide prevention. Is there going to be someone from the town of Newfield that might call suicide prevention and need their services this year? Probably, yeah. We gave a grant to the farmers market. Are there farms in Newfield that participate in the farmers market? The answer is yes. Tax counseling for seniors. Are there seniors in this town of Newfield who are going to take advantage of the tax counseling services in the year 2023? I think the answer is probably yes. We gave some money to TC3. Are there Newfield residents that are going to go, and Enfield residents are going to go to TC3 this year? I think the answer is probably yes. We gave some money to the Ithaca Fire Department for a specific hazard piece of equipment that only they have in the county. And we gave some money to Bangs Ambulance, who provides countywide services. Are those emergency medical services going to show up in Newfield this year? I'm guessing yes. The answer is yes, they probably will. We gave money to FoodNet Meals on Wheels, which delivers food to seniors and other homebound people. Are some of those people in Newfield and Enfield? The answer is yes. So I'm talking to the people of Newfield and Enfield and the whole county. You may not have gotten the exact grants funded that you would have liked, but I guarantee that the residents of your towns and every town in Tompkins County will be receiving benefits from this program. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Next is Rich John and then Deborah Dawson.
I apologize for speaking twice, but I forgot to mention congratulations to you, Shauna, and you, Dan.
Thank you.
But I wanted to say thank you to Deborah Dawson for a year of service as vice chair, and I didn't want the moment to pass without saying that. So.
Hear, hear.
Thanks, Rich.
Deborah Dawson.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding ageist, I am just tired. It's been a hell of a year. I wanted to commend Dan for pointing out that a lot of the grants that we gave, while they're not specifically targeted towards particular towns and villages, they do serve the entire county. And I want to caution my colleagues not to be tremendously parochial in your voting and in your consideration, because, yeah, we represent districts. I know my district, the villages of Cayuga Heights and Lansing, didn't get anything from the Community Recovery Fund. And in fact, I was really disappointed because the village of Lansing is part of the town of Lansing, and I was really hoping that we would have given money to the library in the town of Lansing, and it didn't get any traction, but that's just the way it goes. But you know, there's this tension between what's good for the broader county population and what's good for your particular district and your village. So, for example, the Alcohol and Drug Council has its walk-in detox facility down the street from me. And a lot of people in my village were very upset and worried about that. They were not happy. I still voted and supported that however I could. A lot of people in my village have been very upset because we have been housing homeless people at the Econo Lodge, again, right down the street from me. And I know that we've had incipient encampments and a lot of crime against commercial establishments and residents in our immediate neighborhood in the aftermath of that decision by the county. Still in all, we need to house people somewhere. And so I've tried to be supportive of that. The facility that Cayuga Med has applied for, the crisis stabilization unit, that's going to be in the Ithaca Mall buildings, again, right down the street from where I live. And some people in my village are very upset about that. But that is a county need. So I urge us all to be very careful. It's a difficult balance to strike, but you have to think about the wider county needs as well as just the needs of your particular constituents, because that's our job. Thanks.
Thank you, Deborah. Anyone else for public comment of legislator privilege of the floor? Now it is time for the chair's report. I hope everyone enjoyed the holiday, and it's January 3rd and we are all back to work. I would like to take time this evening to thank Greg Mezzi and Amanda Champion for their kind words. I would also like to offer my appreciation to this full legislature. I'd like to thank Deborah Dawson for being a wonderful chairperson. Her constant griping was one of my truly the thing that made most
of your office.
Definitely the joyous part of my job. This past year has been a huge learning experience, and I've been humbled many times. I've seen this group of colleagues come together to discuss difficult issues and find solutions. It's truly been an honor to be your chair. Once again, I thank you for trusting me and electing me to lead this legislature in 2023. I would also like to place a shout out to our Highway Department for their support to Erie County following the historic and tragically deadly blizzard. 8 of our employees brought equipment and assisted with snow removal operations, all without disruption of our own operations. It was great to see the highway folks step up right away to support another community in New York. I also thought it would be fun to have a little bit of a trip down memory lane and talk about some of our achievements throughout the year. First one, the Recovery Fund. This might be a little sore topic right now, which will receive much discussion for many months to come, is nearing its final stages, and over $6 million will be invested into our community. We passed our budget with a solid maintenance of effort and several new investments to the organization and communities. Local redistricting was completed, which will increase our group by 2 in the next election. We took a firm stand on supporting the people of Ukraine and continue to fly their flag in our chambers. We welcomed 5 new colleagues, all of whom have contributed greatly this year. Juneteenth became a county paid holiday, and we had another successful year of honoring the date and Black history in our county. Thank you also to our colleague, Henry Grandison. We approved and kicked off the Green Facilities Capital Project and passed our Green Fleet policy, furthering our investments in sustainability. Lisa Holmes was appointed County Administrator, the first woman to hold the permanent post. We advocated for further child care investments at the state level and saw historic actions taken by the governor in her budget. We've advertised new programs to our community. The Community Justice Center contract was signed, and the work of reimagining public safety is moving forward. We accepted the food systems plan, and legislators became even more aware of these issues. The transportation agreement was negotiated and signed by all parties, ensuring a future for TCAP, although challenges persist and will require our attention moving forward. The charter revisions approving the merger of public and mental health have been approved, and we heard community concerns regarding EMS services and the challenges they faced, and approved a coordinator position in our budget to show that this is a priority for our county. Thank you is also due to the county staff who have made all of this possible. Over the next few weeks, the Vice Chair and I will meet with legislators to discuss committees and preferences. My plan is that for our January 17th meeting, I will offer the State of the County address and announce committee assignments that will be effective as of February 1st, 2023. Thank you again for your support. It means so much to me. Thank you all.
We have a new clerk.
And we do have a new clerk. Katrina McCloy, new clerk, first day on the job. Next, we are going to move on to reports from our county staff. First report is by Deputy County Administrator Bridget Nugent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Happy New Year. Lisa wasn't able to be with us tonight, but I just have a few brief updates for you all on behalf of County Administration. So currently, County Administration staff is working to execute contracts with all the community agencies whose projects were funded through the Community Recovery Fund. And over the next few months, the county administration will be working with departments on their 2023 goals and work plans, and we'll make sure that those are shared with their respective committees of the legislature to ensure that they align with committee goals. And lastly, county administration has compiled an impressive list of departmental accomplishments from 2022, which Lisa will be sharing at the next legislature meeting. I think this will showcase the breadth and depth of county services. Any questions for me? Thank you.
You got off easy tonight.
I know.
Next is Bill Troy, County Attorney.
I have some reports concerning two matters that are pending, or one is not. You may recall I'd asked you earlier for permission to settle a case involving somebody who'd fallen down some steps. That settlement was reached today for the amount I asked authority for, and the trial of that matter set for the 17th of this month is now over. Also, the county, or more specifically our district attorney, has been named as a defendant in a federal lawsuit pending in Buffalo, New York. That's because the DA in Chemung County also is in the same boat, and that case is in the Western District of New York, which is Buffalo, even though we're in the Northern District. Governor Hochul signed into law some time ago a series of gun possession restrictions in the statute, one of which said you can't bring guns, even if you have a clean record, into religious institutions. A church here in Ithaca was a church also down in Elmira called His Tabernacle Family Church, commenced suit claiming a constitutional violation. There has been a preliminary injunction issued by the court, although it's being stayed because the Second Circuit is dealing with several of these cases. And right now, we're just in repose. Our position is really straight. Our DA and the DA down in Chemung County have both said they have no intention in the world of enforcing that provision of this new law, and therefore, nobody's going to get arrested for it. Therefore, there's really no constitutional dispute here. It didn't sit well with the judge, and he put that aside, so we have that issue to deal with. But as I say, for right now, I think there are 3 other cases with similar type facts and legal issues that the Second Circuit and maybe the U.S. Supreme Court, because I know Justice Sotomayor has recently asked for papers concerning one of the cases, and we're either going to rev things up and be involved in some big litigation, or we're going to sit back and see how these other cases are decided. But we are involved in those. Who'd have thunk it would have come in my door about 2 weeks ago? And that's about it. I have other usual daily events, but nothing really else to report.
Thank you. Deb Dawson.
Yeah, I'm just curious how there's jurisdiction in the Western District of New York for our 2 counties.
Because Chemung County is in the Western District.
Oh, okay. So we're just...
And they were named first, because that's where the church is basically, and they won. So it's over there.
Okay.
Yeah, I had forgotten, and I was looking at the same thing saying, what's this? And then it dawned on me, yes, Chemung.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill? Okay. Thank you, Bill Troy. Next is Drew Brayman, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy New Year to all. The accounting staff survived New Year's, and that's all we focused on. So no further report unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Drew? Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any resolutions to be added to and withdrawn from the agenda this evening? None. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. Public Safety Committee, Resolution A, authorization to accept FY 2021 State Homeland Security Program, SHSP grant, Deputy Department of Emergency Response, ID 11378. Health and Human Services Committee, Resolution B, authorizing Tompkins County to participate in the Equitable Retention Mortgage Assistance Program, IRMA, ID 11393. Resolution C, urging New York State Governor and New York State Legislature to adopt legislation guaranteeing universal access to free meals for students in grades K through 12, ID 11368. Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee, Resolution D 2022, Budget Adjustment, Recycling, and Materials Management, ID 11366. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Veronica, seconded by Randy Brown. And we will do a raise of hands. All those in favor for a consent agenda, please raise your hand. Okay. Mike Sigler, did you raise your hand at one point? Okay. And are there any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Next, we will move on to our standing and special committees. Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you. The Public Safety Committee has not met since our last meeting. We are set to meet on January 19th and begin work on the year. I just wanted to note the Sheriff's Department reports 46 in our jail with 0 board outs today. So happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions for Rich John? I see none. Thank you, Rich. Next, Health and Human Services Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Madam Chair, our next meeting would have been on MLK Day, but the county is closed that day, so instead we have rescheduled for Thursday, January 12th at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Any questions for Dan Klein? Okay. Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Yes, we will be, we haven't met since the last legislature meeting, but we will be meeting and talking about interesting things like the Red House again on Tioga Street. And we will also be talking about what might be a roadmap should the Public Safety Committee ask us to look at any kind of construction for the public safety building. Of course, that would only be after the legislature had directed us to do that.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Okay, I see none. Thank you. Next, moving on, Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Thank you very much. Government Operations will be meeting this Thursday at noon, and I have one resolution.
Okay.
All right. I'll go ahead and move establishing 2023 meeting dates.
Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Greg Muzzy.
And I would just note that the first meeting that we would normally have in July would have fallen on July 4th, and we went ahead and decided to not include that. So we will only have one meeting in July, according to this schedule.
Thank you. Mike Lane?
Yes, I did not agree with that in committee, and I would move to amend to return to the 2 meetings in July. I guess it would have to be on the first Thursday.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment? Seconded by Randy Brown. Yes, sir.
We're elected officials. Our business here is to make sure government operates on a regular basis. We aren't elected to have vacations. Whether we're here or not, things happen. And last year, when we didn't do the first meeting in July, we had a particularly busy meeting for the second meeting in July, which I don't think would have been quite as difficult if we'd had had both meetings. I just think it's part of our job. If someone needs to leave for a vacation, they don't have to be at the meeting. There are 14 of us. So I would urge you to vote to put that back in.
Thank you, Mike. Would anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Oh, Deborah?
Yeah, I don't think that the point of skipping a meeting in the summer is necessarily to accommodate us as legislators. My understanding, as we've had this discussion in the past, is that this accommodates our clerks and staff who might want to have a vacation from us. So for that reason, I think I would oppose Mike's amendment.
Thank you. Greg Mezzi?
Yeah, I oppose this in committee and will continue to support the resolution as it was put forth. Again, I think we're here to run the county for the people of the county. It may be sometimes inconvenient for staff. It may sometimes be inconvenient for legislators. But I also think that we're here for the long meetings and we're here for the short meetings. So if the second meeting in July is a little bit longer and it allows for certain folks within our, department heads and within the legislature clerk's office to have a little break and not have to rush and not have things sort of get off schedule, then I'm fine with that. I also think that if there's a reason for us to have a meeting, we can have a meeting. And it's okay to add one back on. And I don't think we saw a lapse of government. We just heard the list of accomplishments from last year. Kudos to everyone. I can't wait to hear what Lisa has to say for what the staff was able to accomplish in 2022. I don't think we failed the residents of Tompkins County because we provided an Independence holiday break in our schedule. Mike, I get what you're saying. I personally haven't missed a legislature meeting myself. I think it's important to be here. I think it's important to govern. But I don't think we fail at our job when we provide for this break. So I'll not support the amendment.
Would anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment, put forth? 1, 2, 3. And all those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm 10. So it's a 3 to 10 vote. It fails. Okay, back to the original resolution. Would anyone like to speak to that? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Looks like everyone. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Amanda, did you have anything else for? Okay. Are there any questions for Amanda Champion? Okay. Next up is Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee. Ann Corman, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the Vice Chair, Greg Mezzi, for taking care of the meeting and the meeting prep while I was away. And we did not have a meeting of this committee since our last legislature meeting. We will have another the January meeting on the 23rd at 1:30.
Thank you. Any questions for Ann Corman? Okay. Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Thank you. So we have done the bulk of our work, but we're not quite done. So one of the things that we haven't talked about much yet is that our consultant will be monitoring these projects on an ongoing basis into the future to make sure that all the contracts are met and that ARPA regulations are followed. So their work continues, which means our work continues a little bit. The current plan is that they will probably report to us quarterly, and somebody at the legislature needs to receive that. So this committee was a, special committee. I don't know exactly the title, the temporary committee. So I don't know if it's going to be in the same form going forward or not, but some amount of work for this project will continue into the future. The committee will not be meeting in January, but I imagine somebody will need to receive some information from our consultants, probably starting in February.
Thank you, Dan. Mike Sigler?
I just wanted to ask Dan, if they're going to report back, what if it turns out, I mean, I've been on the IDA, people have not performed, we've had to do a clawback. What if that happens here?
Yeah, so I would expect that is likely, that for one reason or another, some of these projects are not going to be able to be completed, and that money returns to us, and some entity at that time will have to decide what to do with that money.
But what if the money's already spent?
So these are reimbursement grants, and they have to have performed the work in order to do it. They are able to ask for an exemption to have the money forwarded, but I would suspect that that's going to be a rare case, if at all.
All right.
Any other questions for Dan Klein? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next is Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Deborah Dawson, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We haven't met since our last legislature meeting. We will be meeting next Monday. And I think the bulk of our discussion, besides the ordinary in the course resolutions, will be goals for the committee in 2023.
Thank you. Any questions for Deborah? Okay. Next is Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Ann Corman and Veronica Pillar.
I'll go.
Go ahead. I don't think we met.
No, yeah, we have not met. WDIC has not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is Wednesday, January 25th at 3:30 p.m.
Okay. Any questions for Ann Corman or Veronica Pillar? Okay. Any individual member filed resolutions this evening? Don't see any. We have minutes of our previous meeting, December 20th, 2022. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Veronica, seconded by Ann Corman. And any questions or comments, changes? I see none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Any unfinished business? Okay. Can I have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Travis, seconded by Mike Sigler. And all those in favor of adjourning? Okay. Have a great night. Thank you all.
We can stay.
Recording stopped.